Right now, you are looking at the wall of the leftmost cubicle in the toilet at my favourite bar, and every time I find myself in this or another scribble-covered stall, the same question pops into my head. Is this art? Generally, art designed to easily appeal to the masses like advertisements and more functional creations like most clothing or metallurgy, great word by the way, fall under applied art. By contrast, so-called high or fine art doesn't need to be practical or easy to understand. It exists purely as an expression of the creator's imagination and ideas. So, what criteria can we use to find the best latrinalia that these fecal foxholes have to offer? Idea, reaction, and execution. Is there a clear original idea? Does the work provoke thought or a specific response? And has the work been created with a notable degree of care or attention to detail? And so, out on the town and armed with my new search parameters, I went to the toilet. The first piece I present for analysis is this brief but intriguing epigraph written on the back of the middle stall's door. I chose this piece to set the scene and hopefully clarify the aims of this bizarre side quest I've found myself in. I like this one a lot. It's slightly mysterious, the gold pen is a great choice against a black door, and let's not forget we're in a public bathroom, so any unusual colours are an immediate win. The line could mean a lot of things, but consider for a moment the far more common phrase of envy the dead, which has appeared in everything from the Bible to quotes by former leaders of the Soviet Union. It clearly suggests that the subject would rather be dead than go through whatever is happening to them. But here, this piece references the subject as the envy of the dead. To me, the meaning then becomes an ironically morbid way of saying cherish your life, because you are the envy of the dead. So, where does it land on each of our criteria? It's expressing an idea that isn't necessarily obvious to the viewer, but it is clearly there. Because it isn't technically a complete sentence, it naturally makes you wonder about the potential beginning or end and what that might say. But even if everything else said about this piece so far was completely unintentional, the use of gold pen on the black door was not, which definitely adds to its appeal. Hopefully, I've made my case why this is a cut above the average drunken doodle, but if we're going to find the true artistic ceiling of this establishment's thunderbox, we'll need a much bigger set of samples. Now that I knew there was potential for greatness behind each of these stall doors, this seemed like a pretty straightforward task. Head in and, when the time comes, gather the evidence. But I ran into a problem almost immediately. The toilet in question contained 3 cubicles. During my previous visit, all 3 were functional and open to patrons. This time, one had been locked and sealed. It took me multiple visits to figure this out before a very inebriated gentleman appeared to read my mind and inform me that it had been closed by the staff for unknown reasons. So I was forced to press on with just 2/3 of the available material left. But I won't let that get in the way of our duty to the arts. Next up is our second piece of carefully considered, expertly curated high art. Okay, so I might have jumped the gun on that introduction, and I will admit that this piece relies a lot on shock value. However, it is a striking statement and image, I am sure you will agree. I can't quite figure out if the drawing is meant to be a disturbing, expressionist depiction of its own drug-addled creator or just the alien from American Dad, but that only adds to the allure of the art. It's certainly not for everyone, especially not babies, but there is, for better or worse, artistic validity to it. It occupies its own space, clearly took time to create, and if nothing else, it makes me wonder if I want to return to this bar. Idea? Unfortunately, yes. Reaction? Fear? Attention to detail? Schizotypal. Before I get any further into the analysis, some of you may have noticed an issue with my plan. Evidence gathering was already limited by the unexpected closure of the 3rd stall, but it was also limited by the very expected fact that I am not a woman. It stands to reason that we would have just as much luck finding our great artist on a wall in the women's toilet as in the men's, perhaps even more. So I did what any sane person would do in my position. I enlisted the help of a woman to retrieve any interesting pieces. This was surprisingly easy to do, and helped make up for the failings of man. This almost familiar-looking piece is the first and, sadly, the last contribution from the women's bathroom at this location. I very nearly overlooked this seemingly typical graffiti tag before I realized 2 things. 1, it says bimbos. 2, it's at roughly waist height on the door, meaning the artist responsible for this intricate piece of penwork was most likely either crouching, kneeling, or sitting on the floor, all of which are more than I would ever be willing to do in a public bathroom. This gave me a newfound respect for the creator, who not only took the time to stylize a word like bimbos into a fairly textbook graffiti style, but likely did so in an incredibly uncomfortable position. The art itself definitely meets our criteria for execution, but as for the other 2, it really only makes me think of mass-produced, skater-style clothing brands and designs. Okay, pack it up. that one's over. It took a while, but we have unintentionally crossed over a line set at the start of the video. The bimbos tag was definitely art, but this journey wasn't about finding the most acrobatic or dedicated additions to these hallowed walls. It was about finding the best of the best, an unseen masterpiece. After that, you might be questioning my judgment and whether it's possible to find anything that genuinely and inarguably fulfills this video's objective. When reviewing what I'd gathered, I briefly felt the same way. But then I found something. Several interrelated pieces that not only hold their own ideas and meaning, but together tell a genuinely intriguing story. The aptly named Red Pen Man series of works are characterized by their reference to the artist's alter ego, Red Pen Man, and the sign-off -RPM written in bright red pen. The first piece I saw featuring these elements is shown here, and is presumed to be the artist's debut piece. On its own, this would be barely worth mentioning, and certainly doesn't meet the criteria set out at the start of this video. But it is just the opening act of a gripping drama that unfolded on the middle cubicle walls. Upon reviewing more of the photos, I found another piece featuring the RPM sign-off, and this time it had a lot more to say. Here, Red Pen Man decries the removal of graffiti from the stall, and argues that the scribbles contained there actually add to its aesthetics. I found this to be a meaningful and oddly powerful message from an artist that was quickly becoming something of a folk hero in my mind. The ideas conveyed, his use of specifically red pen, a colour typically used to correct or grade written works in a piece about censorship, and the language chosen make this a truly notable piece worthy of being called art. But there was more to this declaration than met the eye. I was reminded of another photo that featured a large red blur elsewhere in the bathroom. After analysing the two, I confirmed they were taken not only in the same cubicle, but on the same wall. I quickly realised I was looking at a piece of lost Red Pen Man art, and the inspiration for his most influential work. In the following weeks, I returned to find numerous copycats with comparatively lame messages showing the reach RPM had achieved with this series of works. And now, the criteria. The Red Pen Man series of works contains ideas of varying clarity, from presenting Red Pen Man's opinion on an issue in plain English all the way to a literal blur, and yet somehow all of the included examples contribute to make these pieces an exceptional portfolio in an unlikely location. While the first piece doesn't evoke much thought on its own, in hindsight the remaining two works make me wonder about the origins of Red Pen Man and what his first appearance on this wall could mean. The blurry mess and subsequent rebuke are very intriguing, both apart and in their own right. We will likely never know what came before the blurry red smear, but that only adds to the experience, I think. There isn't much technical substance to speak of, but given that the pieces appeared over the course of at least a month, presumably using the same pen, there is clearly a level of dedication shown by RPM. Additionally, the RPM sign-off itself is a fascinating touch for bathroom graffiti, and carved out a sort of style across all the works it appeared on. For now, we move on from Red Pen Man, but I'm excited to see what he does next as the shining example of what this video set out to find. In this piece, our unknown artist has scaled the toilet to scroll the words "Time won't come back, money will" in crayon. I have to say that both the placement and tool used to create this fascinate me. Not only did this person smuggle a big-ass 1.5 wide Crayola into this place, but they also decided to put it in perhaps the only spot in the toilet that can be seen by more than one stall. That's plus points for execution, I imagine, so that just leaves the other two criteria. But I've done enough analysing for today. I turn this work over to you at home. What do you think? Is this fine art? Analysing these works took much longer than any video topic I've done so far, and despite the environment where I captured them, it's been a lot of fun. I read an article the other day which pointed out that bathroom graffiti is a unique form of forbidden art, because a toilet is both a public and private place, so it's incredibly unlikely you'll be caught doing it, but incredibly likely your work will be seen by lots of people. To me, this means that, especially after a few drinks, people who may have never lifted an artistic finger their entire life might be compelled to scale the walls with a Crayola or sit on the floor of a public restroom for 10 minutes just doodling. And that's pretty cool. If you enjoyed this video and have some extra time on your hands, it really helps me out in the algorithm if you watch another one from my channel right after this. I'll put up an end card in just a moment with some of my personal favourites to make it that much easier. And if you took issue with anything I spoke about in today's video, feel free to leave a Red Pen Man style condemnation about me in the comments section below. I read them all. Thank you all for watching, subscribe for more like this, and stay greasy, friends.